Hello, everybody. Today, we'll discuss monopolistic competition and oligopoly. Learning objective will contain name the defining features of oligopoly and monopolistic competition, calculate the profit maximizing price and quantity for a monopolistically competitive firm in the short run, describe a monopolistically competitive market in the long run, analyze the welfare cost of monopolistic competition, explain how product differentiation motivates advertising and branding, describe the strategic production decision of firms in an oligopoly, explain how basic tenets of game theory apply to an oligopoly's incentive to compete, and compare the welfare of producers, consumers, and society as a whole in an oligopoly to the welfare of those in a monopoly and those in perfect competition. Now, which one of these, just like the others, is the motivation? What do the musicians Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, and Drake have in common? It's the same thing that Metallica has in common with Death Cab for Cutie Dean Martin, Shakira, and 2016 Nobel Bob Dylan. Each has recorded one of three major labels that together account for almost 70% of the North American music market. Universal, Sony, and Warner. Back in 1950s and 1960s, there are many small record labels. In Alabama radio host Sam Phillips started Sun Records out of a cheap storefront and signed then unknown artist Elvis, Johnny, and B.B. King. Barry Jordan formed Moto- Motown Records in Detroit with a tiny family loan. Some of the stars included Marvin Gaye and Stevie Wonder. The music industry evolved from one where a lot of small labels and promoters worked with artists and bands to one where a few very large firms dominate the market. The internet has revolutionized music distribution. New artists can make themselves independently of the four major labels, but it's not as common for an artist to break through with a small label as it once was. The music industry is an example of a market that is competitive but not perfectly competitive. This is a quite common feature of the market. Now understand market structure. Previously, we described two market structure. Remember, in last to last chapter, we discussed perfect competition, and last week we discussed monopoly. Not the game, but market monopoly. Now, this chapter describes two more that are not monopolies, but are imperfectly competitive. Oligopoly monopolistic competition. This gives us four market structures. Number one is perfect competition. Second is monopoly. Third is monopolistic competition. Fourth is oligopoly. Now, understand importance of market structure. What is it? Let's take a pause of 2 minutes and think of that. What do you think is a market structure? Stay with me, but don't read it. Maybe just try to understand. Think what could be the market structure. Understand? If we talk about music industry, that's the $5 billion question for everybody from record label executives to retailers to the competition bureau. In answering it, we'll focus on two characteristics that define a range of market structure: number of firms, is number of companies, and variety of products, that is, product variety. Does that make sense? All right. Let's let's start looking at number of companies. This figure is showing that America's music industry dominated by these four labels. No single one of them is big enough to dominate the industry. That way, if we discuss De Beers, Diamond is Forever, dominated the diamond market in 20th century. This tells us music industry is not about a monopoly. You see that? Different shares. So what is it? So music industry is dominated by four big firms. Their record sales presents over 80% of the market. They are so big that their behaviors affect the entire market for music. So it is also not perfectly competitive. Remember that? That's not simply because the market is dominated by a few large firms. It's also because it encompasses a wide variety of products. Even if there were thousands of small labels competing, the market would not be perfectly competitive because music is not a standardized product. There are many similarities between, say, Kanye West track and a music file by The Strings. They are both digitized version of music using data compression technology with a common digital recording format. Both emit sound and voices then played. They are similar enough that it makes sense of us to think both as products of the same industry, and that is music industry. But they are certainly not a standardized product, at least not as a they have similar kind of fan base. Different singers will have different fan bases. So these two features of the music industry, a small number of large firms and product variety, are the defining features of two market structures that lie between extreme models of monopoly and perfect competition. But both market structures, oligopoly and monopolistic competition, are common in real world. While many industry display features both models, understanding each model separately allows us to make powerful predictions about how firms will behave. Now, oligopoly describes a market with only a few firms. The word itself is derived from Greek word for a few sellers. These companies sell a product or service that may or may not be completely standardized, but it is similar enough that they are in competition. Examples of oligopolies are wireless network providers. The Canadian market is dominated by three companies like Bell, Rogers, and Telus. And fast food burger chains, you can think of McDonald's, Harvey, Wendy's, and now maybe A&W. Yeah, let's try to find few more categories in oligopoly, and yeah, take 5 minutes. Okay, and we are here for 5 minutes. Let's try to find more companies in the same category. Write down on paper. Fine. Now we understand a few more examples. Okay. We discussed two examples, Bell Rogers Tellers, Burger King, McDonald's, Wendy, and A&W. And we want to define a feature for an oligopoly is that is a strategic interaction between firms. Price and quantity set by one firm affects other firms' profits. Make sense? Suppose if you are in charge of a company in oligopoly, it is a vital part of your job to keep an eye of competition. The shareholders of Wendy's would not be impressed if CEO had no idea what McDonald's had just introduced a new kind of burger, or that Harvey's was offering promotional discount on soft drinks. Oligopolies are also characterized by existence of some barriers to entry. Barriers to entry enables monopolies, monopolies to exist. You could not set up in the diamond business to challenge De Beers without discovering a new source of diamonds. In perfect competition, by contrast, we assume that there are no entry barriers. It's easy for new firm to enter the market. Oligopoly is somewhere in the middle. It would be possible to set up a wireless carrier, but expensive to construct the infrastructure. It would be possible to break into national burger chain market, but tough to overcome established brand loyalties. Makes sense, right? Now understand monopolistic competition. It describes a market with many firms that sells goods and services that are similar but slightly different. Remember that a feature of perfect competition is that consumers are indifferent between the products of competing firms. A feature of monopoly is that the product has no close substitute. Between these two extremes are markets in which products have substitutes that are close but not perfect. Consumers might be willing to pay a bit extra, but if the price differential is too large, they will choose a substitute product. Although the name monopolistic competition sounds like contradicting in terms, it, com- it expresses an idea that firms in such a market have a kind monopoly, but in a limited sense. For example, in 1950s, Sun Records had a monopoly on selling Elvis records. If you wanted an Elvis record, you had no choice but to buy it from Sun. Devoted fans of Elvis might be willing to pay more for an Elvis record than other records by other artists. Thus, Sun had some power to its own price, but not much. If Sun raised the price of Elvis record too high, most people would prefer to save money to buy records by other artists instead. Monopolistic competition describe a great many real-world market. For example, Danone Canada Inc. It has a monopoly on selling Danone brand yogurt, but not a monopoly in yogurt in general. If you especially like Danone, you might be willing to pay extra. But if the price of differential becomes too great, you will switch to another brand, such as Astro, right? Similarly, you might be willing to pay a little more for a meal at your favorite restaurant, but if price is too high, you would be happy to settle for a second favorite. So understand, oligopoly is about a small number of firms. Monopolistic is about variation in the product. Oligopolies can exist even if a product is standardized. Monopolistic competition can exist even if there are lots of firms. Make sense? Let's take a 5 minute break and then we'll continue. Now, let's talk about monopolistic competition. Remember that under the model of perfect competition, firms do not make economic profits. It's not surprising then that firms would rather be operating under conditions of monopolistic competition where they can make some economic profits. How do monopolistically competitive firms make economic profits? By making a product that consumers perceive to be better or different from the other products from competition. In other words, firm must offer goods that are similar to competitions but more attractive in some ways. This process is called product differentiation. Why this product is different from others. For example, mobile phone. Uh, all mobile phones are similar, but sometimes you like Samsung, some of you like iPhones. Now things are different because iPhone is a clear market leader, but earlier it was not the picture, right? Now, except now you can check more examples of cars, right? All cars looks similar and they have similar kind of models, but they have some differentiations. Make sense? Sometimes product differentiation is accomplished through genuine innovation. The many record labels operating in 1950s music businesses are example. They competed to discover and shape new, exciting, different performers who could attract a follow of loyal fans. The more enthusiastic Elvis fans were, the less interchangeable they considered Elvis' record to be with those of other artists. The less interchangeable the record, the more Sun could charge without fear of losing sales. The founder of Sun Records discovered a wealth of previously overlooked talent in the in and around Memphis. He was happy to work with black musicians who were otherwise excluded from white dominated parts of the music business in that era of music. In doing so, he had to create rock and roll, not only recognize talent, but shaping into something new. Whether or not genuine innovation in is involved, firms have an interest in persuading customers that their products are unique. This is the role of advertising and branding. Even when a firm's product is not really very different from other products on the market, it may be possible to convince customers that the product is different and thereby persuade them to pay more for a particular brand. Monopolistic competition in the short run. Product differentiation enables firms in monopolistically competitive market to produce a goods for which there are no exact substitutes. In short run, it allows a firm to behave like a monopolist. In the long run, as well, we see the situation is different. In different with this difference between the short and long run is key to understanding monopolistic competition. First, let's look at the short run. When monopolistically competitive firms can behave like monopolies, firms face a downward sloping demand curve, just like a monopolistically competitive firm cannot adjust its price without causing a change in the quantity consumers demand, assuming that production involves both fixed and marginal cost. Firms face a U-shaped average total cost curve, and profit maximizing production quantity is the point where the marginal revenue curve intersects the market cost curve. The profit maximizing price is determined by the point of the demand curve that corresponds to this quantity, like here. You can see in the short run, in a monopolistically competitive market, Elvis label will produce records up to the point when marginal revenue is equal to marginal cost and charge the corresponding price on the demand curve. The firm earned profit in this case, but also creates deadweight loss. There are some potentially confusing things. Let's read it for 2 minutes, then I will explain. So let's talk about it now. Sun Records was a small player in a very competitive music market. So why wasn't a price taker facing a horizontal demand curve as small firm in a perfectly competitive market would be? Why did it face downward sloping demand curve in the short run? Why would Sun Records have faced downward sloping market demand curve? Sun Records had a monopoly on Elvis record. Sun's market is the market of Elvis music only. But Elvis wasn't the only act in the market, even if it was very popular. We could have more uh, artists, right? Now, monopolistic competition in the long run. For all their similarities in the short run, the monopolistically competitive firm face a long and one huge problem that the monopolist does not. Other firms can enter in the market when existing firms are making economic profits. Other firms have an incentive to enter the market. Of course, it's not always possible for other firms to enter the market and produce exactly the same product. There's only one Elvis, after all, and he belongs to Sun Records. What other firms can do is look for artists who are like Elvis and whose records will therefore be seen by music lovers as closer substitute for Elvis records. This explains why in music and other many other industries products tend to come in waves. A new musical performer with an original style comes along and make splash. Other record labels rush to sign artists who have similar style. A trendy high fashion label produces a new range of clothing. Other fashion labels rush to produce clothes that looks similar. Apple releases the iPad. Other companies rush to produce touchscreen tablet computers. And list is unlimited and so on. What effects does the entry of more firms have on demand faced by each existing firm? A firm earns profit on different but similar products. New firms are attracted to monopolistically competitive market. What is the effect of entry? Entry affects demand. Recall from chapter 3. The number of firms is one of the determinants of demand. Importantly, entry shifts an individual demand curve to the left, decreasing the quantity demand from the firm at each price. Entry drives down profit to zero in long run. If a firm wants to keep products different enough to be in a nice niche of its down, it might advertise. In this case, entry has less effect on demand but drives cost up to the point profits are zero in the long run. The long run outcome for monopolistic competition. In long run, firms in a monopolistically competitive market face the same situation as firms in perfectly competitive market. Profits are driven to zero. Many firms' long run profits are zero when total revenue equals total cost. This means that per unit sold, average revenue is the same as average cost. Graphically, ATC curve just touches the demand curve. It's tangent to the demand curve at the price of quantity sold by firms long run. Yes, at this point, they could decrease ATC by producing more, but choosing not to, because doing so decreases the profits. This results in firms producing at the smaller than efficient scale. A monopolistically competitive firm is like monopoly. It faces downward sloping demand curve such that its marginal revenue is lower than price at each quantity. Monopolis- Monopolistically competitive firm is likely like a perfect competition firm. It earns zero profit in the long run. This has two implications for the monopolistically competitive firm. One, monopolistically competitive firm operate at smaller than efficient scale, and monopolistically competitive firm want to sell more. Now let's take a break of 5 minutes, then we'll continue. Okay, now the need for continual innovation. Our analysis of monopolistic competition in the long run has another interesting implication. How will firms respond to competitors entering in the market with closer and closer substitutes for existing products? Clearly, existing firms will want to step up their own attempts to differentiate their products. Only by constantly finding new ways to be different is possible for a monopolistically competitive firm to generate profits in the long run. The need for continual innovation explains why record labels are constantly in lookout for new talent. It explains why firms in so many industries put so much effort into launching new products and finding new ways to advertise their products. If they don't, their competitors will catch up and their economic profit will disappear. A truly innovative firm that manages to stay one step ahead of its competitors can continue on economic profit by always offering something slightly different. For this reason, economists usually believe that competition encourages innovation. In contrast, a monopolistic has far less innovative, far less incentive to innovate because there is no danger of customers switching from a firm with a newer and better products. Now, let's try to understand this welfare cost of monopolistic competition. Spend 5 minutes understanding that, then we'll discuss. Now, like any deviation from equilibrium price and quantity that would prevail under perfect competition, monopolistic competition is inefficient. Firms maximizing profit at a price that is higher than marginal cost, and the quantity bought and sold is smaller than it would be under perfect competition. This means that there is deadweight loss. The market does not maximize total surplus. We have seen that product differentiation enables firms to keep making economic profits in the short run. Firms therefore have an incentive to persuade customers that their products cannot easily be substituted with the rival product. They can do this either by making products truly different or by convincing customers that they are different. Advertising is one strategy employed by firms to inform customers about or convince them of the difference between the products. It involves creative, creative thinking that goes beyond the economics, as described, where it can take you. You can go to book and 453, you will read it. So let me explain what is it. What made you choose the particular brand of paper notebook, the energy drink you had on your way to class, the favorite whitening toothpaste, the novel of summer vacation. Someone spent a lot of time and energy figuring out how to make that product and brand appealing for you. Often, in that ways, you might not consciously have realized. If you have a creative spirit and love of business, then working in advertising might be good fit. Now understand cell phone companies often give ads pitching benefits of switching to new provider. They will also offer introductory rates to attract new customers. Companies know that they will keep customers through contracts or through inertia. There is a cost to finding out competing price, reading sometimes complicated contracts and switching. One more understand Coke, Pepsi, and the not so secret formula. Coca-Cola makes a big deal about secret formula when two employees tried to sell company's confidential recipe to Pepsi in 2007. You might think Pepsi would have jumped into chance to learn how its rival makes product. In fact, Pepsi not only refused to buy information, it particularly asked that FBI should check this information. What was going on? The answer that question we have to understand the structure of Coca-Cola industry. The cola industry. The cola company and PepsiCo company been battling it for over a century. Coke has around 80% and Coca-Cola market and Pepsi has 20. The cola industry is therefore an oligopoly. Two firms dominate. That would be that would be hard for new cola manufacturers to break into the global market. This partly because of both Coke and Pepsi successfully build such a strong brand. It would be tough to persuade new customers. Now, let's talk about oligopoly. Imagine you are executive at Universal Music Canada. Your day-to-day decisions hinge on how to make your company as profitable as possible. Which new artist should we sign? How should we advertise coming release? How much Can we charge for album and legitimate downloads without driving customers into illegal downloading? One common thread runs through these decisions: know your competition. You know you are paying to win against Sony and Warner, two identifiable competitors. You know their executives, their catalog of artists, and at least a bit about their distribution and advertising deals. You probably also have some idea what new release they might have in pipeline. Now compare. If the market were perfectly competitive, price equals marginal cost and no economic profits are made. But if marginal cost becomes zero, firms cannot cover their fixed cost and would not enter the market. So that's all for today's lecture. Details are available in your textbook, and yeah, presentation will be also there to help you with that. And lots of case studies you will see in the textbook that will help you to understand the concept better. If you have any question, you can either ask me by messaging or emails. So that's all for today.